Good morning. Today is the 5th organized by the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists, and we are very grateful to Dr. Jan Mendis for accepting our invitation and agreeing to do this presentation. And as you know, last time we had Dr. Kalyan Rodrigo talking to us from Canberra, Australia, regarding community psychiatric services, and now it's the second of that. And Dr. Jan Mendis is going to talk to us today on the development of community psychiatric services in Sri Lanka post-Tsunami since 2005 onwards. So for people, an introduction, but for people who don't know him and who have not worked with him, the junior trainees, I'll very briefly introduce him to the audience. Dr. Jan Mendis has been in the government service for 35 years, and he has joined the Angoda hospital. At that time, it was called the Mental Health Hospital. And then in 1986 as a junior doctor, and he became a consultant there in 1997 and became the acting director of the National Institute of Mental Health in 2002, and has served as the director at this institute for almost 13 or just a bit more than 13 years. And Dr. Jan Mendis was the acting president of the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists in 2005, and then he became the president of the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists from 2009 to 2010 for 2 years. And he was the chairman of the board of study in psychiatry in the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine for 3 years, since 2015 to 18. And I had the privilege of working with him as the secretary of the board of study during that time. And then after going away from NIMH, he became a senior lecturer and the head of department of the Kothalawala Defence University Medical Faculty. And now he's the executive director of the Kothalawala Defence University Hospital. And what is most important for I think the trainees to know is not the credentials that he holds, but the fact that he's the sole person responsible for single-handedly transforming the old mental health asylum that we had at Angoda to a state-of-the-art modern mental health institute. So this was a tremendous task, and a task that so many of us told that nobody will be able to achieve. And this is, I think, a great achievement that Dr. Mendis has done, and he has given this National Institute of Mental Health to the country with all its modern facilities. And he has also been a pioneer in the development of community psychiatric services in the country as the president of the Sri Lanka College of Psychiatrists, as well as the chairman of the board of study in psychiatry. He has done a lot to improve the mental health services in the country. And I can just say one instance where when I was the psychiatrist working at Matale, Dr. Mendis is the main person who encouraged me and gave me the initial money to start the mental health unit or the psychiatric ward in Matale. And not only Matale, he has helped such a lot of junior psychiatrists in the country to develop units in the country. And I will not take much of time. I'll end with a brief quote from Dr. Sajeevan Amarasinghe's tribute to Dr. Mendis on his retirement. So he writes here that Dr. Jan Mendis was an excellent clinician who always empathized with his patients. He never neglected his clinical responsibilities despite his heavy administrative responsibilities. He took a personal interest in his juniors and went out of his way to help them. Those of us who worked closely with him knew that there was a heart of gold under the rough exterior. So with that, I'll hand over to Dr. Jan Mendis to start his presentation on the development of community psychiatric services in Sri Lanka post-Tsunami period. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gian, for that detailed introduction. I think I need to, while preparing this presentation, I thought that I need to dedicate this lecture for all my supervisors or trainers, but mainly to Professor Nalakamentis, because I learned our community psychiatry from him. In fact, while we were trainees, we did not know what is community psychiatry, but he is the person who initially had been talking about community psychiatry and the psychiatry away from the main city. And sorry. Hold the line here. Wait. Right. Okay, the movement. Thank you. I just, even though my lecture is for Tsunami, I will go to little bit of history. 15th century psychiatry came to Sri Lanka. In fact, it evolved in different phases. And in the early 80s, British House, patients in jails. Then the ordinance in 1839 to establish.
Sir, is it possible to increase your volume or get a bit closer to the mic?
All right, okay. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, yes.
Better?
Now it's better. Now it's better, yes. Yeah.
Then the provide, in fact, then patients were shifted to Handler, leper asylum. It is still there as the leprosy hospital. And in 1947, again, patients were separated into mental asylum in Corella, where the Valicada prison is situated at present. Then the Cinnamon Garden Mental Asylum. Now it is converted to the big hotel complex in Cinnamon Garden, right next to Radio Ceylon. In 1917, the present National Institute of Mental Health or the Mental Hospital Amgoda built. It took about 7 years to build, and it was opened in 1926. If I go back to this Mapothel report, this is one of the most important report any trainee should read if he wants to learn psychiatry in Sri Lanka or mental health in Sri Lanka. Mapothel had been a surgeon working in UK, and after working as a surgeon for 10 years, he decided to change his specialty to psychiatry. And then what he did was he started visiting a lot of psychiatric hospitals in the world. He had been visiting to India, Malaysia, Thailand. Then he was asked to come to Amgoda in 1938. Then in his report, he said that overcrowding is one of the main problems, and to prevent overcrowding, there has to be some other way of managing patients rather than away from home, closer to home, and more settled patient needs to be sent to the community. And these three were one of his main proposal. And the first outpatient clinic, now it is the room 10 clinic. First outpatient clinic was started in then General Hospital in 1943, and this neuropsychiatric clinic, we have converted that into an adolescent clinic during my time, and the psychogeriatric clinic still it's in operation. I think Pushpa Ranasinghe does that clinic with Kapila Ranasinghe at present. And then the patients, we started sending patients to Palavatta Mental Hospital. After several reports, what happened was, then there had been various reports, and then in 60s, what happened was they decided to recruit psychiatric social workers to work in Angada Mental Hospital, for them to work in the community, for them to go and see these families, and to again to have some kind of contact with the families to rejoin patients into the families. Then the establishment of child guidance clinic at Colombo General Hospital initially, then thereafter it was shifted to Lady Vijay Hospital. Presently, Dr. Tsunami is doing that clinic. And in 1949, 25-bed psychiatry unit, which is the Ward 59 ward, is commenced. That is also by transferring patients from Angada Hospital. And in 60s and 70s, these are the places where the psychiatric unit, acute psychiatric unit, was in operation. One in Jaffna, one in Anuradhapura, one in Patiklo, one in Colombo, Kandy, and Colombo, Kandy, Ratnapura, and Galle. Then there were two clinics in operation in Mathura, which later converted to Mathura Hospital acute unit, and Palutara, there had been a Palutara unit. Then there were no much of changes from 1960 and 70. Then what happened was, the Sri Lanka Psychiatric Association, which is the present College of Psychiatry, it was established in 1974. It was active up until about 89, and it had been dysfunctional for about a 10-year period and recommenced in 1998. They also started acting very forcefully from 1998 to have what kind of service that what we have today. And if you go to community mental health, and in fact, community mental health for the world was introduced in US, and President Kennedy signed this very important document. If you could go to the internet, you can read this Community Mental Health Centers Construction Act, which still we can learn a lot from this act. And unfortunately, what happened was, after him signing this act, 3 weeks later, he was assassinated. And as a result, most of the decision, what was mentioned in this act was, they had a difficulty of operating it. But I advise the trainees to read this act completely. Then there has been a community mental health movement in Sri Lanka. That started in somewhere in 80s. You see, in most of the old papers, if you read there are a lot of things that they had written about Angola Mental Hospital and the crime and punishment, the neglect, the trauma and injuries, or then the right issues, abusers, physical abusers, sexual abusers happening to the patients were highlighted. That is number one. Number two is that this Mullaria, the present Mullaria hospital, and the part of that hospital was converted to a long-term care unit, which is the halfway home Mullaria today, and where there have been about thousands of mentally ill and chronically mentally ill patients were housed without proper treatment, without proper facilities, and what they have, and they used to highlight these kind of issues in the papers. Then at the same time, a lot of people started, free thinkers, psychiatrists, various other sociologists started looking at psychiatry in different point of view other than from the point of view of mental hospital management. And this article is also one of the important articles from which was written in 1984 by Professor Mendes, development of mental health care in Sri Lanka and what are the challenges and the opportunities. Then people started writing about mental health at work. You see, more approach is mainly going towards the mentally ill to mental well-being, and this article also gives how this stress going to affect the mental health of people. This date back in 2000. Then one of the important landmark of promoting mental health awareness and well-being in Sri Lanka was the development of National Council for Mental Health, which is the Community Mental Health Resource Center, which was the first of that kind in this part of the world, and that is in 1982. And this act was introduced to the parliament by then President J.R. Jayawardena, and then it is registered with Department of Social Services and NGO, and it's a charity. It's a charity movement, and it maintains Borella Resource Center. Now it is called Borella Resource Center and Gorkania Residential Facility, with a more broad-based kind of issues with regard to mental health service and the development of mental health care for patients with mental health issues. Then at the same time, in basic needs is also started talking about mental health and the mental health issues. And there is another community mental health NGO called NEST. NEST began its function in 1988, and they have also started working in Mullaria Mental Hospital and more towards the improvement of the lives of those neglected patients and the life of mentally ill and mainly abused kind of people, and they try to transform their lives into different way, and the approach had been somewhat different than the biopsychosocial approach what we had used in those days. Now, in 1980s and 1990s, these are a few examples, but I have just personally gathered from these five psychiatrists. Dr. Neil Fernando, he started working in Ua province in somewhere in late 80s and up until 2000. What he started doing is that he started visiting 4 clinics in Uva province, mainly Mondragala, Bibile, Valimada, and another place, distant places. And he used to conduct clinics in different uh, different localities of the same, mind you, this is the same province. Then Dr. Ikerudu, we have told about this development of Central Province Community Mental Health Service. In fact, he started developing that from the scratch, and he could manage to develop this into one of the demonstrative model for Sri Lanka. And I also learned a lot from Dr. Rodrigo, the way how he used to approach various kind of important issues with regards to mental health is concerned. Then Dr. Panduavala, he had also been working in Uva province and the Vayaba. He also started going away from the general hospital acute ward setting, and he mainly started training primary care doctors. The first time in the history of Sri Lanka, primary care doctors in those distant hospitals. And Dr. Kuruparaji and Dr. Lanin Fernandez, he also started visiting to 5 different distant hospitals of Ratnapura district. This is between 80s and 90s. Then at the same time in 2000, what happened was Mental Health Action Network, now it is called CanDenMix. They started, these are the Carers Association. They also started working with the mental health teams in a somewhat lower scale. This is also one of the most important development with regards to community mental health is concerned. The curriculum change in medical faculty in 1994, for which Professor Nalaka Mendes and Professor Saroj Jayasinghe gave the leadership. And from this change, what happened was the psychiatry came, psychiatry is brought from it was, while I was a medical student, it was only one question from final year medicine paper to a separate subject, separate clinicals, separate MCQs, separate SCQs, and as a separate subject. You see, initially, a lot of people started criticizing this move. Lot of people really did not like to share their time with psychiatry, and there have been various difficult discussions, and ultimately, I think psychiatry won at the end of the day, having a psychiatry as a separate final year subject from 94 onwards. And then thereafter, from 2016, all the medical faculties must have a final year subject. Final year subject, we need to include psychiatry, and which is not seen in most of the part of this part of the world, as well as in some other Western world. And we are ahead of most of those countries. Then you see, for the medical student, you see this is one manual for medical student and the facilitators about community mental health. People started talking about it. This is why it's a movement, and started talking about community mental health away from psychiatry, away from mental hospitals, for which most of the psychiatrists were also in opposition, and for these kind of development. See, then Sahania, they did various kind of different developmental model for mental health care service in Sri Lanka. And these books are also available. And it is also, I think, what I believe is for you to work as effective psychiatrist in Sri Lanka, effective arguer for psychiatry in Sri Lanka, you must read all these books. And community mental health care issues and challenges. We had a conference in the year 2001, and then caring for the long-term mentally in the community. You see, those days the people started believing only long-term mentally are to be treated in mental hospitals. Me as a medical officer, we have to educate lot of staff, lot of patients, family members, that how to treat patients in the community, long-term psychiatric patients in the community. Then the development of mental health care service in Sri Lanka. It is also a very good report, IDA and World Bank Services project. And I advise all the senior registrars to read these booklets during their senior registrar period. Then the other most important stimulator for community mental health development had been this. You see, our suicide rate. I'm not going to go into suicide rate. Suicide rate has been coming up and up. Then by the year that we won the Cricket World Cup, that is 1996, we were the highest suicide patient suicide rate. We had the highest suicide rate as well. And the President Chandrika Kumar recommended this presidential committee to recommend their recommendation for suicide prevention. This also, I think Dr. Abhay Singh was one of the committee members, and what they went into all the suicide happened in those 2 previous years, and they studied this, and with that study they came out with various kind of recommendations, and that is also mainly towards developing community mental health in Sri Lanka. This last bullet point is upgrade treatment facilities for management of acute poisoning include emergency management as well as the management, psychosocial management of those victims in the local hospital itself. Then what happened was that this is pre-tsunami from 2000 to 2005. You see, now Sri Lanka from late 80s, 1980s to 1990, mainly started talking about this community mental health, even though that nothing had happened that much positively to development of mental health is concerned. It is like germination period. Then in this, I advise all the senior registrars and the registrars to read this document also. WHO report 2001. This was called World Health Report, and in 2001 report mainly dedicated to mental health. In this, they started talking about mental health care and overall recommendations. There were 10 recommendations, and the provide treatment in primary care, make psychotropic drugs available in all the treating centers, give care in the community, how to educate the public, involve the communities, families, consumers, establish national policies, programs, legislation, develop human resources, link with the Sorry. Yeah. Monitor community mental health, support more research. This is the time where I became the director of Angola Hospital. And this this world report was very, very useful for me to exercise my duty. And what I started doing is that I was going mainly how to provide this treatment in primary care. That is my motto behind, even though that developing Namboda Hospital. Then Sri Lanka College, this was the last Psychiatric Association annual session book. And this book is also dedicated to mental health challenges and opportunities. Dr. E.K. Roddu was the president of this Sri Lanka Psychiatric Association. In fact, he took over the presidency, and in this forward, he has mentioned about the development of community mental health in Sri Lanka. You see, we had very, very bare, kind of very poor quality mental health service in Sri Lanka, and only these red spots are the places where there are psychiatrists available. There were hardly few psychiatrists. I joined as a 12th psychiatrist to Sri Lanka, and there were hardly few active psychiatrists. No active psychiatrists. All the psychiatrists were board certified psychiatrists, and this we had a very, very basic mental health service. Then tsunami struck. Then what happened was, then I was the college president. My motto was, or not only our council and most of the psychiatrists working at that time in Sri Lanka, all our motive was to how to rebuild mental health in Sri Lanka. Then lot of foreigners, the foreign nationals, the foreign professionals, foreign psychiatrists, known people, unknown people, lot of people, they started visiting Sri Lanka, and they requested us, or they wanted us to have meetings with them, and we had a very good platform for us to discuss about how to develop mental health in Sri Lanka. Through that, WHO had a very good, nice gentleman for mental health division as a consultant, Mr. John Mahoney, and with him we could manage to work to develop or redevelop mental health in Sri Lanka. From his support and the working together has brought out this mental health policy for Sri Lanka in 2005 to 2015. And this was a very, very good document. Even this document is valid even for today. And it gave the major step towards a community-based mental health service. And all the trainees, all the senior registrars, any young psychiatrist must have a copy of this in his pocket. It's like Hutchinson for us. And it has a national mental health policy objectives to treat mental disorders in an efficient and holistic manner, and to and not only the vision is to have a purpose in the improvement of the mental health and the psychological well-being of the citizens of Sri Lanka. Then gradually, psychiatry started coming back to Sri Lanka. You see, 12 psychiatrists had become 11, and there were 16 acute psychiatry units, and 18 districts had basic mental health services. Then 18 psychiatry units had increased to about 23 consultant units, and the other units started fulfilling their shortcomings. As a result, various other kind of living houses that means different kind of models were introduced to provide care for mentally ill people. These are the independent living houses that we built in Angola Hospital. Then this is one of the most important major development which I believe for mental health improvement, for the community mental health improvement in Sri Lanka. He is Benedito Saracino, one of the leading figures, and he came to Sri Lanka in 2005, and he opened the we have developed a training unit. This is for the national training, and he came to Sri Lanka, and during his visit I invited him to open the mental health training unit. This is to train all the staff, even including doctors, in the area of mental health further. And the training department has a training structure, and the psychiatry, social workers, occupational therapists, registrars, all of them to get involved in that training. And that is one of the most important development with regards to development of training in Sri Lanka, mental health training in Sri Lanka. Then what we started doing in Angola is that mainly to develop this sub-specialized or specialized unit, perinatal psychiatry unit. We developed psychogeriatric unit and the psychiatric intensive care unit and the community mental health center. This is also to develop mainly to discharge patients and to follow up their patients in the community, and the learning disability unit and the adolescent care unit and the forensic rehabilitation unit. This is also forensic patient. What we thought was they had been there for years. What we thought was after a rehabilitation process for us to discharge them into the community. Then we started a helpline. Then with a NGO called CCC, and it's called 133 line. And you see, in 2009, we started even building ICU. Now it has become a problem for psychiatrically ill patients. If I would have completed, in fact, with this, we have completed this task, but unfortunately, we could not get the medical staff to run the ICU. Otherwise, we would have had much problem today during COVID. Then the research unit, and what we started in 2010, drafted the new Mental Health Act. In fact, this new Mental Health Act also, now it is almost 10 years have gone, and it's under revision. And you see, we have introduced 4 most important points to develop community mental health care in Sri Lanka. This is number 1 is that emergency admissions and emergency admission orders by any medical officer of any hospital. That means any patient could be taken into any near primary health care unit, and where the medical officer will be able to admit that patient only for emergency purpose. Then number 2 is the supported admission for inward treatment, that is like usual thing. And then introduction of community treatment order, that is supported outpatient treatment procedure after discharge. If any patient requires any kind of a proper legal kind of backing to treat patients in the community, that is also mentioned in the community, in the mental health act. Then the review committees that are also very important for the purpose of community treatment. Then we started talking about the mental health teams. You see, earlier we had always working in isolation, either with the psychiatrist or a social worker or a very few occupational therapists. only. Then we thought that the multidisciplinary team should have these 6 members: psychiatrists, psychologists, community nurse, social workers, occupational therapists, and the community support officers. All these things started. Now you see the service similar to the above was available in 2005 to 2010 only at the policy level, but which is a reality today. Then this the lead psychiatrist in every district, from which the provincial council in concurrence with the Minister of Health will identify the lead psychiatrist for the province. And this is also most important development with regards to the community mental health is concerned. Now at present we have about 200 psychiatrists either on the training or MD psychiatrist qualified 176. There have been a huge number stayed there in about 100, and there are about 50 addition in the training. Yeah. Then for this multidisciplinary team member development, in fact, the MO mental health training started in 1988. I was also one of the first these training group members, and you see there were only very few psychiatrists working in the country, and because initially we started training them for 3 months and then appointing them from 1988. Initially, we trained very few doctors. It's about initial batch had about 7 doctors, but now it has become a usual practice. It's about we will get about 15 to 20 doctors every year from the post intern. At present, we have got about 175 medical officers of mental health, and this is from the initial stages. Then in 2007, we introduced this diploma psychiatry 1-year training program. This is also to support the psychiatrists in the district to for the purpose of development of mental health in that district, and he as a supporter, mainly when the psychiatrist is busy, he will be able to shoulder the responsibilities that the psychiatrist has to provide care for the mentally ill. Gradually, we have increased the number of training spots. Now, at present, the curriculum is going to be changed. That also to suit to community mental health, to provide community mental health activities in the district. Then the nurses were also given 6-month psychiatry input as an MSc degree. Basic nursing training also has about 4 weeks training in psychiatry, and now we have introduced community psychiatry, CPN, which is also now going to be 6-month training course. And we started this community psychiatry training program in 2010. Unfortunately, after 2 years of training, Ministry thought that this is not a very good move, and because of that, they did not support for about 3-4 years. Now again, from 2017 onwards, they restarted training. Now the training is already has taken over by the Ministry of Health and the National Institute of Mental Health doing this training. We initially started training 2 nursing officers per district and the 4 nursing officers to Colombo district. And wherever you go, you will see these nurses are doing wonders by delivering community mental health care in Sri Lanka. is the slide during this initial training period in 2010. Yeah, in 2005, during 2005, JVP, that is Janata Vimukti Peramuna, joined the government, and during that, one of their demand was to take these degree holders, to give degree holders job. Then what happened was that the Minister of Health got 400 of the development officers, and we started training about 50 of them for psychosocial work, and later they became psychiatric social workers. And most of them are the psychiatric social workers working in Sri Lanka at present. And the number of occupational therapists are also gradually increasing. Now we have about 175 occupational therapists in the country. During tsunami, immediately after tsunami, what happened was that we had a difficulty of going to those villages because we really did not have any support system in Sri Lanka before tsunami to deliver mental health. Then what happened was that we proposed community support officer that officer is a person from the same area of a few Gram Seva area, and they were given some training in mental health, how to detect patients with mental illnesses, how to recognize the relapses, and to how to bring them for therapy. In 2009, we evaluate this impact of community support officers in mental health service with WHO, and in fact, they are in that evaluation. They really showed that it was a very, very supportive system at the district level. And in most of the north and east, or the Northern Provincial Council and Eastern Provincial Council, now they have recruited them as the permanent cadre for the to deliver mental health care in those districts. Then this Dr. Neil Fernando has written this book for community mental health for other staff members, and this is also a very, very good book for the nurses and the other mental health workers to read. And you know that during 2009, what happened was more in the war created huge vacuum again for development with regards to the development of mental health is concerned, because North and East did not have that much of mental health activities during this wartime. And then what happened was we started supporting North and East also through the College of Psychiatry to develop mental health. Then in by 2011, we had about 32 consultant units. Then the acute unit number has also gone up, and the intermediate care units number is also going up. And the 11 district had about basic mental health service. These are the unit where Ihan was telling about Matari Manasika Saukeka care. And we started in 2000, immediately after war. What happened was we started with various donations to develop mental health units in the places where they did not have psychiatric unit. Matara unit, I think up until today, they are using the same board. And the Hambantala, of course, now they have a different board. Nuareli also, we started this unit, but when after developing this unit, the directorate decided to give another unit subsequently, and Matale and the Mena and Nigambu. Nigambu also has the same unit, and in between various times, they even used to take this unit for to dump other patients. And if you get the story of development of mental health service in Sri Lanka, you see from 2004 to 2017, our map is filling very well, and the services are also going to be given to the patient in the community somewhat effective. Then this World Report also says that the active carers associations and the working with the families are also important aspect of management of mental health. And this pink area are the area where there are active carers associations are in force, and some of the places still in the Sri Lankan map there is a huge vacuum, and it is also the duty of those regional psychiatrists to form a NMH branch with the support of the carers and the family members. And as you know, that National Institute of Mental Health has a national mental health helpline now. That is started in 2018. Then if you get the summary by now you see approach to mental health development. We started this NIM with, then the PGIM 1983 onwards started training psychiatrists. Gradually the number had going up. Then the undergraduate training started in 1993, 94. Then the MOMH in 1998. Diploma holders in 2004, and the community support officers in 2006. Then the community psychiatric nurses in 2009, and the mental health policy, first one in 2005. Now mental health policy, a new policy we have already drafted, and it is cabinet approval is also given from 2020 to 2030. If you take the services and the subspecialties, what happens is that what we expect is that at least one unit per district, at least means you may have 2 adults. You can have even 3 adults units depending if you have 3 psychiatrists. Then the target for one consultant as a child and adolescent psychiatrist per district. Now we have very few, and more trained child and adolescent psychiatrists are working in Australia than in Sri Lanka, unfortunately. And we have trained about 6 forensic psychiatrists. About 50% are also delivering their services in Australia. And the old age psychiatry also introduced in 2016, and the consultation lesson, which is also, I think, we don't have that much of crowd, and addiction is also going to I think going to come in soon. You see, barriers. There are a lot of barriers for mental health development. You see, the common barrier for any psychiatrist here working in the district is, you see, up until today, ideally speaking, you can't admit any patient involuntarily to a district unit other than to Angkor Hospital. Then there are a lot of infrastructure development is required, but they don't have, or they may not have that much of funding. There are human resource shortages, and that has to be, that is one of the huge barriers. Then the policymakers may not pay that much of attention to mental health other than in episodic manner. Then the mental health literacy among the policymakers, even among the patients, families, and co-consultants, co-carers, co-workers is also has been a problem. Then we really don't have a separate mental health budget. Those are some of the main benefits. Now you see now I will come to that. I will come to this later. And now the Directorate of Mental Health now is also now planning to deliver or the planning for the purpose of the development of next mental health policy. According to that, we need to train primary medical care institution, all the human resources development is necessary in the primary medical care institution. For that, they have prepared a guideline for assessment, diagnosis, and management of persons with mental disorders in primary health. This is also one of the important documents for the registrars and to senior registrars. Then there are guidelines for the medium stage mental health rehabilitation unit is also prepared, and that is also important document, and how to manage the medium stage mental health rehabilitation. Then I have mentioned about these historical changes in the mental health, and now you see now there are various kind of community treatment models available in Sri Lanka. Southern model, Eastern model, Northern model, Western model, Central model. But I went to the research methods, and none of those are really properly evaluated. And in the purpose of me putting this slide is for the senior registrar to think about how to evaluate these community treatment centers. This is I think it is a very good project for them to do in Sri Lanka, because these are one of the most important areas in the research activity. And the methods for evaluation of community mental health service. Entire Sri Lankan community mental health service, we can compare with this some other country, or one district community mental health service could be compare with some other district. And because of that, then what are the methods of evaluation? That also there are a lot of literature on this area, which we have also not gone into. Then we need to know the needs of the people with mental disorders for us to develop the proper service. No point we developing alcohol and addiction service if there are no patients with people who consume drugs and alcohol in that district. Right. Then the impact of mental disorders on families and carers is also one of the important areas. And the multidisciplinary team which yes. Then you also need to think about case management and assertive community treatment. I think one of the assertive community treatment activity what we have been doing is that the depot injection procedure happens in the community, right? What are the other assertive community treatment methods? I think we need to start thinking about these things. Then the emergency psychiatric service. and take residential care. Yes. Then the users and advocates I just mentioned about CanMS and the carers and the carer organizations, and yeah, and the privacy and confidentiality in community mental health. These are important areas. Then there are a lot of articles written in community mental health service in Sri Lanka. In 2009, Suman Panan, and he had mentioned about the challenges in the developing mental health service in Sri Lanka. This is one of the very good articles for any trainee to read. Then in this is a highly criticized article about Sri Lankan struggles with mental health burden. It's the other from the other side of the story. In fact, what they really criticize about our mental health service. This is also important article for them to read. Then the mental health service, state of mental health service is a Lancet article. Then the Professor Kastirarati has written about it's a review on development of mental health care in Sri Lanka, lesson learned. And I think I thought that it is better for the trainees to read. And the CEOs has mentioned about the how this development process had taken place. And this is one of the good book, and I think I'm going to NIMH library has several copies of this on community psychiatry textbook and written by edited by Tronico. And you see, this is community mental health in India. This is also a textbook. I wrote an article to this book on community psychiatry in Sri Lanka. This is, in fact, my presentation is mainly around this chapter. And now you see the College of Psychiatry is also now we support the district by visiting the district and having a meetings with the regional directors, provincial directors, and College of Psychiatry has published this district mental health plan 5 documents on various districts, and the Nuwara, Kalutara, and Betiklo documents I have used for this presentation. This is for 2020 to 2025. What is the plan for that district? Whoever the psychiatrist is going to work in this, let's say in Nuwara, must read this, and all the medical officers and the staff also should be aware of this plan. And this is the college, health ministry, and the district psychiatric team, all of their plan. And these are also good articles for you to read. And yeah, now you see, this happened just before tsunami. You see 1990 ambulance, they up until even now, they carry, even they carry COVID-19 positive patients. But if you have a patient with psychiatric illness, they don't carry, they don't take. This is very unfair. And we highlighted this unfairness to the Ministry of Health and the 1990 team. And they had agreed with our training to carry our patients in their ambulance, especially to tackle this emergency. And just before tsunami, just before COVID-19, we started training Colombo district crowd in the area of mental health. Unfortunately, due to COVID, this has to be halted. But this is also next step of community mental health development in Sri Lanka, and for which I think all of us need to support and support for this process. And with this development, I think the psychiatry will go to a different level of platform. And now, if you take one district, I have been contacting several psychiatrists and working in several districts, and having spoken to those psychiatrists working in those districts, I spoke to the psychiatrists working in Ua province, because I have been knowing Ua province for years. And Dr. Neil Fernandez started visiting Velimada, Mayangana, Bibila, and Passara, and those 4 places as a sole psychiatrist working in Ua province in late 80s and 90s. And you see the present, how many clinics they visit, how many psychiatrists they have, and this red indicates the number of psychiatrists for that province. And if you take all the other provinces also, it's like that. Mental health, Jaffna initially had only 1 psychiatrist. Now they have one of the fantastic service in the country. And the mental health service in Jaffna has about 2 acute inpatient units, assessment and follow-up clinics 11, and various other development. Consumer group, you see partially active consumer group, and the community mental health network, intersectoral collaboration, primary health care, awareness and sensitization. For that, they have made books, pamphlets, interviews, workshops, community mobilization, and the working with NGOs. And as a result of this struggle, now we have a better safe mental health Sri Lanka. With that, we could manage to fight for having this national mental health policy in 2019-2030, and this is cabinet has already given the approval. This is in the draft state, and I request all the trainees to read this document. This is in the internet, and this has various guidelines. If you go to the district level, it is district mental health team chaired by RDHS, co-chaired by district consultant psychiatrist. For us to get this co-chair position, it took about 7 years struggle. In fact, all the proposals were already developed by 2013. But the ministry itself, Ministry of Health, directors were oppositional for us to get this co-chair position. As a result, this had been postponed by 7 years, and the 3 college presidents had to struggle very, very, very hard for us to achieve this co-chair position in the district development health care, what you call district meeting co-chair position. Then from this, you can imagine what a kind of difficulty that we have to develop mental health in Sri Lanka, or to provide care for the mentally ill people in Sri Lanka. And my advice is, even though it is becoming delayed, you need to fight for it for us to achieve. Then the primary medical care institution, I told you that health contact level, primary health care, primary medical health care, that means any smaller hospital, primary medical care, even a psychiatric patient could be assessed and then the divisional level, or that in a more refined way. At the MOH level, there will be community support centers. These are right. As a result of this long struggle, we have these several medium stay units, several long stay units, in most of the districts. And then the NGO support for mental health is also very, very important. Certain things where you cannot achieve through the ministry, you can achieve with the help of the NGO. Sometimes psychiatrists, they really don't want to work with NGO. But my advice is that you can work with NGOs, and when they realize that you are also working for some cause, definitely they will support. There are a lot of mental health NGOs working in Sri Lanka. This is one of the things. And you need to work with media. And the media and mental health is also important aspect. And we developed this in 2009 or 2010, mental health and media. And this is to train media personnel in the area of mental health. If we train them properly, they will write good articles. And having international links also important for us to develop mental health in Sri Lanka. And for at least my most of these international links which I use is mainly to share my experiences, for me to get some support, for me to get some additional help, and for me to get donations and to organize a placement for staff to go and do their training. And now you see how we develop mental health in Sri Lanka with always with some kind of a struggle, and you have problems. Tsunami was one problem. Immediately after war is also another area where I started developing mental health. Now with COVID also we could manage to develop mental health. Now these 2-3 slides show that how we could manage to get funding as a result of COVID. We could manage to get a lot of development in the area of mental health, and these are also going to mainly to develop the community mental health and the renovating mother baby care unit in Sinkamali, renovating the and refurbishing psychiatric clinic in Panadura, development of occupation therapy unit in Vena, and innovating refurbishing rehabilitation unit in Delta. Small kind of, then the purchasing electroconvulsive therapy machine and kind of like various rehabilitation equipment, and is ultimately about totally is about 586 lakhs managed to get through the World Bank. Yes. Now, to develop mental health, you see, director mental health has to be a psychiatrist. That is, or should be a person with psychiatric background. Then it is very easy to develop mental health. We took about 35 years to develop this much, but ultimately initial development, in fact, we took struggle initially, and that is because we did not have that much of power. And the director and NIMH also should be a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists also should be motivated. No point just not having a psychiatrist who is not motivated for development of mental health. Then you need to have a proper trained staff, for which you need to always you need to think about, and you must try to train all the staff in various different aspects of mental health training. Then the challenging stigma may not be that much of difficult, or I really did not try to challenge stigma. I just did not take stigma into, and in fact, I took stigma to support or to develop mental health. And the drug has to be available, and the non-availability of transport for mental health is a huge problem in Sri Lanka. my proposal is that any mental health unit must have a vehicle. Then the lack of priority given for mental health is also seen. That is also a huge challenge. Yeah, again, these pictures. Okay, thank you very much. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that very detailed and comprehensive, initially the history of psychiatry in Sri Lanka and the development of mental health services. I'm sure you would like to take some questions.
Of course, yes.
Yes. So the trainees can, or not only trainees, there are some practicing psychiatrists also listening to your lecture. So anybody can ask any questions by unmuting their microphones.
Nayana DC. Nayana.
Hello, sir. I am here. Thank you so much, sir. It's really informative, and we could refresh all the other things about historical background after training for several years ago. But it's really informative, and thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. We are in the process of preparing in fact, me and Shihan wrote a book in 2010 about mental health status in Sri Lanka 2010. I think I thought of editing that to 2020. I need your support to include all the work what you all are doing in the districts or the
Okay.
part of the yeah.
Okay, great, sir. And thank you so much for all the members and the president of the college as well. And it is really important in this situation. We are having such lecture series and presentation. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Nayana. I think it's mainly this topic is very important for all of us because most of us have no access to all this information that Dr. Jan Mendis revealed to us or explained. Because it's very difficult to find the articles or textbooks. I mean, there are very few booklets, but it's difficult to find. So I think Dr. Jan Mendis managed to compile and all together and give us a very comprehensive overview of the development of psychiatric services as well as the history and the struggle that we have gone through as an association, college, and then the board of study and the ministry and the PGM all together to develop our services. So I think especially the trainees who found it quite difficult to answer that question in the recent exam on development of community psychiatric services in Sri Lanka would have got a lot of insight and a lot of information to write this essay or the article. So I think it will be very important.
Gihan, can I make a comment? Chamara here.
Yes, Chamara.
So thank you very much. I think besides community psychiatry and all that you have done, I was telling Gihan also, I was very impressed. And I think it's something very important for the trainees as well. A lot of the time we hear people, I mean, a lot of people who have done a lot of things, I mean, they talk about their achievements, which is very good and it's deserved. At the same time, there are some people who only feel that what they did is important, and they sometimes even go to the effect of running down the other person's things. Not because maybe they are bad, but they genuinely believe that what they do is right, the other people are wrong, and create a lot of animosities. Now, what I've seen is I've been Dr. Mendis' trainee. I've seen him do so many things. If he just spoke about everything he has done, I think still he could have covered an hour. But what he did was he acknowledged a lot of the people who did things before him, along with him. And I think that is a very important thing, because the trainees will be the ones who will be doing these things in the future. And to not just go on a, you're the only person doing this, you have to acknowledge everybody who did it and involve everybody, and that will be the key to developing services. And I think that must be one of the hallmarks of Dr. Jan Mendis' success, because he utilizes other people and appreciates their efforts. Thanks.
Yeah, this about this, there are a lot of Sri Lankan documents, and my advice to trainees is that there are a lot of very good paper articles. And even now, what I did was that I have got paper articles from 1980, mid-80s, that is 86, I started working in Amboda. From that time onwards, any paper publishes something about mental health, I used to collect. And that gives a very good collection. Then whatever the ministry document or the document related to mental health in Sri Lanka, you must try to find out. Now it is sometimes available in the internet. But if it is not available, then you need to have a copy of that. This I have forgotten to mention, no, I did not, because my lecture was not on history of psychiatry. Otherwise, there is a very good book written by Carpenter and then Professor Mendis. This is about history of mental health in Sri Lanka. That book also, all the training, all the senior registrars, all the senior registrars who has has a faint idea of coming back to Sri Lanka must read that article, read that book. And this is the time where they have more time for them to concentrate on Sri Lanka and the mental health. And yeah, that is very, very important for you to have the collection of Sri Lankan mental health related. In fact, I wanted to include, that is one of the other area which I missed. In fact, I have told Mahesh to help me to find that information. There are a lot of community work that happened in the area of preventing smoking, alcohol, drugs. Right, that is also coming under development of community psychiatry or community mental health, and there are a lot of things that happen in the area of education and the mental health or the psychosocial aspect of education and the improvement, which I could not cover in this lecture because I did not have I couldn't get the information. Otherwise, those in fact we need to include that also. I think which is very, very important. Yeah. Neil, do you have any comments? Neil.
So, Sumudu here.
Yeah.
On behalf of junior consultants, I would like to say a couple of words. Thank you so much for being a role model to us, sir. We stand on your shoulders. It was a great presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I need to thank Gian for asking me to give this lecture, and I need to thank Gian for the introduction given, and I need to thank Sumudu for organizing everything, and yes, and I must thank that college has this lecture series, and I think definitely this will also cover a lot of other area of mental health development or mental health and theory aspect. I think we must continue this, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Then I think the trainees are sending a lot of messages thanking you. I hope you see that on your screen. And